flight, Karen tried to boot a black businessman from first class, and it backfired hard. I'm on a flight, just settling in, when a woman loses it over the guy next to her, claiming he doesn't belong in first class. Minutes later, the crew's involved, and what happens next flips the whole thing upside down. What really went down up there? Stick around to find out. It's a wild ride you won't believe. Before we start, drop a comment with what city you're watching from. I want to know how far this story's flying. Hit that like button and subscribe if you're into crazy real-life tales like this every day. No delays. We're taking off right now. So, I'm Alex Carter, 29, a marketing guy who spent the last week drowning in spreadsheets and bad coffee in Atlanta. This Delta flight to LA to see my folks is my ticket out. I snag seat 12C in coach aisle spot, decent view up to first class, and shove my beat-up backpack under the seat, ready to zone out with my earbuds. It's a Boeing 7037, mid-afternoon flight, not too packed, but busy enough. Bags clunking, a kid whining, coffee whiff from the galley. Up in 4A first class, there's this black guy, late 30s maybe, in a gray suit that's sharp but creased at the sleeves, wire-rimmed glasses, scratched up, and a gray cap flipped backward show off a short fade. He's hunched over a scuffed Lenovo laptop, tapping at Excel, with a faded black backpack tucked under his seat. When Sarah, the flight attendant, offers drinks, he says, "Just tap water's fine, thanks," in a low, easy voice, smiling tired but real. I think chill dude earned that seat the hard way. Next to him, 4B, is a white lady, mid-50s, blonde hair in a tight bun, red cashmere sweater, pearl necklace, screaming for attention. She's got a Louis Vuitton tote, and when Sarah offers water, she snaps, "No ice, Evian only," like she's at a ritzy bar. She's Karen Ellis. Sarah calls her Mrs. Ellis, sitting stiff, checking her lipstick in a compact, muttering about first-class standards. I'm like, extra as hell. Thinks she runs this plane. We're on the tarmac, engines humming, when Karen glares at Marcus, face scrunching. She mutters loud enough for me to hear. This isn't right. Not in first class. Then bolts up, hands on hips, barking at Sarah. "Excuse me, I need you to check this guy's ticket. He doesn't belong up here." Marcus pulls off his cap, sets it down, says calmly, "I'm in the right seat. This is my ticket." Karen snorts. "Don't just stand there. Do your job. We can't have just anyone in first class." I'm watching. What's her deal? Karen stood there, arms crossed tighter than a locked suitcase, her chin jutting out like she was about to declare herself the unofficial mayor of first class. Her voice sliced through the hum of the engines, sharp and loud enough to wake a coma patient. "No way this guy's supposed to be in first class. I know who belongs here and who's ruining it for the rest of us." She spun toward Sarah, the young flight attendant gripping her tablet like a lifeline, and barked, "Check his ticket right now. I'm not letting some outsider lower our standards." She flipped her blonde bun with a dramatic flourish, her pearls swinging like a pendulum of entitlement, then pointed at Marcus's worn loafers. "Look at those scuffs. Those aren't first-class shoes. He's clearly out of place." She sniffed the air, her nose wrinkling as if she'd caught a whiff of something rotten, adding, "And that cap? That's not the look of someone who belongs up here. It's disrespectful to the rest of us." Her eyes darted around, daring anyone to challenge her righteous crusade. Marcus let out a soft sigh, a quiet exhale that carried the weight of a man who'd heard this tune too many times. He set his gray cap on the tray table with a gentle thud, his movements slow and deliberate, like he was handling a fragile keepsake. He closed his laptop, a scuffed Lenovo that looked like it had survived a war zone, and leaned back, his broad shoulders slumping slightly. "My name's Marcus Tate," he said, his voice a low, steady rumble cutting through Karen's shrillness like a calm breeze. "I've got my boarding pass here. Happy to show it if it helps." He pulled out an older Samsung phone, its case cracked and edges worn, and swiped to the Delta app with unhurried fingers, handing it to Sarah with a faint, tired smile. No big deal, just want to clear this up," he added, scratching his jaw with a calloused hand, his posture relaxed, despite the storm brewing beside him. He adjusted his scratched glasses, tilting his head slightly, and said, "I've been flying this route for years. Just need to get to LA for a meeting tomorrow. No trouble intended." His tone stayed even, almost gentle, like he was soothing a skittish animal rather than facing a full-on meltdown. Karen wasn't having any of it. "Oh, please, anyone can fake an app these days," she snapped, cutting him off before Sarah could even glance at the screen. She tossed her head back, her pearls clinking with each jerky move, and barked, "You don't belong in first class. I'm protecting the experience for everyone here. This cabin's for people who've earned it, not some random who thinks he can stroll in with that cheap laptop and those thrift straw clothes." She spun around, eyeballing the other first-class passengers like she was rallying a militia, her voice thick with disdain. "I've been flying Delta for decades. I know what luxury looks like, and it's not him. He's probably never even heard of a proper Bordeaux." She waved a manicured hand, her bracelet jingling, as if dismissing Marcus's very existence. She doubled down, pivoting back to Sarah with a screech that drowned out the safety video droning overhead. "I paid good money for this seat, hundreds of dollars, to sit with the right kind of people. I'm not letting some guy who doesn't fit in ruin it for all of us up here. He's a security risk. Just look at him, acting like he owns this place." She straightened her red sweater with a sharp tug, her fingers brushing her pearls like they were a badge of honor, her voice booming as if she were delivering a sermon to save the soul of first class. "He doesn't know his place. He's insulting everyone who belongs here. That cap, those glasses. He's a walking violation of what this cabin stands for." She thrust her chin higher, her bun wobbling slightly, and added, "I can tell he's never tipped a waiter properly in his life. Probably doesn't even know how to order a decent meal up here." Her eyes flashed with righteous fury, daring Sarah to defy her. Marcus shifted in his seat, running a hand over his short fade, his glasses slipping a bit as he leaned forward slightly. "I've got nothing to prove," he said quietly, his voice steady and unhurried. "But if it helps check it, I don't mind, just trying to get through the day." He rested his hands on his knees, his posture loose, almost slouched, like he'd rather be anywhere but the center of this mess. "Been flying since I started my little shipping gig. Keeps me busy, that's all," he added, his tone soft, almost like he was talking to himself, not the woman screeching beside him. He glanced at Sarah with a small nod. "Whatever makes this easier, I'm good either way." His calm was unshakable, a quiet anchor in the chaos, his face showing more fatigue than frustration, like he'd long ago learned to let this kind of noise roll off his back. Karen wasn't fazed. She was a freight train with no brakes. "Don't let him fool you with that act," she shouted, her voice hitting a pitch that could shatter glass. "He's pretending. He doesn't belong here. I'm keeping this cabin exclusive for people who deserve it, people like us, not him." She flailed her arms again, her pearls clinking louder, her bun tilting precariously as she leaned toward Sarah. "If you don't check him, I'm calling the captain, or Delta's CEO. I know my rights as a premium passenger. I've been loyal for years, and I won't let this slide." She stomped her foot, her heel clicking on the floor, and glared at Marcus. "Look at him. Those cheap shoes, that ridiculous cap. He's an insult to every paying customer up here. I'm doing this for all of us." Her face flushed red, her eyes wild, as if she were single-handedly defending the honor of first class from an invading barbarian. The cabin stirred. Mia, the artsy kid next to me, whispered, "She's insane, he's fine." The vet in 11B muttered, "She's digging her own grave." Yoga Mom in 10A shook her head. "What a nut." Tom in 5B chuckled, "This is going to be good." I watched, barely blinking, as Marcus scratched his neck, shrugged, and said to Sarah, "Go ahead. I've got no secrets. Just want to get this done." His voice stayed low, his hands resting calmly, a stark contrast to Karen's flailing meltdown. I thought, she's about to crash hard. He's too cool for this. The tension hit its peak as Sarah, her face flushed and sweaty under the cabin lights, took Marcus's cracked Samsung with trembling hands. She clutched her tablet like it was her only shield, tapping at the screen with shaky fingers, her ponytail bouncing nervously with each move. Karen stood there, arms crossed, smirking like she'd just won the lottery, muttering loud enough for the whole plane to hear, "You'll see. He's out here, and first class stays first class. Can't have riff-raff up here dragging us all down. I knew it the second I saw those scuffed-up shoes." Her voice dripped with triumph, her pearls swinging as she tossed her head, her blonde bun tilting slightly from all the dramatic flair. She leaned closer to Sarah, hissing, "Hurry up. I've got rights, and he's violating them just by sitting there." Marcus sat still, his broad shoulders relaxed, letting out a quiet sigh that barely rustled the air. He adjusted his scratched glasses with a slow nudge of his finger, then leaned back, resting his hands loosely on his knees. "I fly this route every month for work. Delta knows me," he said, his voice low and steady, cutting through Karen's noise like a calm wave. "Check my sky miles if you need. I've got over 200,000 miles, I think." He spoke like he was mentioning a grocery run, not dropping elite status, his tone soft and unhurried. He scratched his short fade, tilting his head slightly, and added, "Been flying since I started my little shipping gig 10 years back. Just me and a beat-up van back then. Keeps me busy, that's all." His words were simple, no trace of boasting, just a guy sharing a slice of his life. He gave Sarah a small nod, his tired smile flickering. "Go ahead. Whatever clears this up." Sarah scrolled on her tablet, her fingers hesitating as she glanced between Marcus and Karen, who was tapping her foot impatiently, her heel clicking like a metronome of entitlement. "Come on, girl, do your job," Karen snapped, her voice rising to a screech that echoed off the overhead bins. "I told you he doesn't belong. Those glasses, that cap, he's a fraud." Sarah paused, took a deep breath, then looked up, her voice firm despite the tremor in her hands. "Sir, your ticket's valid. Seat 4A, first class, booked 3 weeks ago. Everything's in order." She handed his phone back, her ponytail swinging as she straightened, relief washing over her face. Karen's smirk vanished, her face locking up like she'd been hit with a stun gun. "No way! That's impossible. He doesn't belong here," she roared, her voice cracking with fury as she lunged forward, pearls swinging wildly. "You're wrong. He's lying. Check it again. I'm not sitting with some nobody who doesn't fit." She flailed her arms, her bun wobbling precariously, her red sweater stretching as she pointed at Marcus like he was a criminal caught red-handed. "He's a disgrace to this cabin. Look at him, acting so smug. I'm protecting us all from this insult." Her eyes blazed, her face flushing a deep crimson, as if Marcus's calm presence was a personal attack on her very existence. Sarah, now steadying herself, turned to Karen with a sharper edge. "Ma'am, let's see your ticket." Karen thrust it out with a smug flick of her wrist, fluffing her hair like she was about to accept an award. "Here, proof I belong," she declared, her voice dripping with arrogance as she adjusted her pearls, her bun tilting further under the strain of her outrage. Sarah took the ticket, her fingers steady now, and tapped at her tablet, her brow furrowing as she scrolled. She paused, her lips tightening, then looked up, her voice cutting through the air like a blade. "This isn't a first-class ticket. You're assigned to 15D, coach. You swapped seats with someone without authorization." The cabin froze for a split second, then exploded. Tom in 5B, all man bun and loud vibes, shouted, "Wait, she's the imposter? Oh, this is gold!" His voice boomed, laughter bubbling up as he whipped out his phone, zooming in on Karen's stunned face. Yoga Mom in 10A cackled, "She's the gatecrasher, priceless." The vet in 11B grinned, "Knew she'd bury herself, classic move." Mia next to me gasped, "No way!" as the cabin filled with a rolling wave of chuckles and gasps, heads turning to watch the meltdown unfold. Karen's face flashed from red to purple, her eyes bulging like they'd pop out of her skull. "What? No, I deserve to be here. I paid for this experience," she screamed, her voice hitting a pitch that could shatter windows, her pearls clinking as she flailed her arms. "He's the problem, not me. I'm protecting first class for all of us. You're all blind, she pointed at Marcus, her hand trembling with rage, then spun to Sarah. This is a mistake. Check it again, you idiot. I've been loyal to Delta for years. Years! He's the fraud. Look at that cheap laptop, that ridiculous cap. Her bun finally gave up, half collapsing into a messy tangle, her sweater stretching as she leaned forward, shouting, You're all incompetent. I'll have your jobs for this. He's dangerous. I knew it from the start. Mike, a hulking crew guy with a buzz cut and a no-nonsense glare, stepped in, his voice like gravel grinding underfoot. Ma'am, you're in the wrong seat and disrupting the flight. Move to 15D or you're off this plane, right now. Karen stomped her foot, her heel slamming the floor. You can't do this. I'll sue Delta. He's the one who doesn't fit. Get him out, not me. I'm a loyal customer. This is an outrage. Her arms flapped like a panicked bird, her pearls swinging wildly, her voice cracking as she shrieked. You're all fools. He's laughing at us. I'm the victim here, me. She glared at Marcus, her face a mask of fury, spit flying as she yelled. Get up, you fraud. I'll drag you out myself if I have to. Sarah muttered to Mike. She didn't scan in up here. Someone in 15D gave up their seat. Mike nodded. Figures, let's move her. Karen's ranting hit fever pitch. This is discrimination. I'm the victim. He doesn't belong. Look at that smug face, those cheap glasses. Marcus wiped his glasses with his sleeve, slow and deliberate, and said to Sarah, I'll switch if it calms things. I've got a deadline to hit. Don't need the hassle. His voice stayed mellow, like he was offering to split a sandwich, not facing a public execution. Mike cut in, No, sir, you stay. She's moving. End of story. The cabin erupted. Folks clapped like it was a concert finale. Tom zoomed in, Karen's going, Coach, best plot twist ever. Yoga Mom laughed. She's the fraud? Oh my God, the vet chuckled. She's done. Classic. Karen was hauled back, dragging her tote, her face ghostly pale, muttering, This isn't right. I'm the victim. Her bun hung loose, pearls dangling like a defeated flag as she stumbled down the aisle. The plane leveled off at cruising altitude, the engines humming steady as we cut through the clouds. Karen slumped in 15D, her red sweater wrinkled, her pearls tucked under her chin like a lifeline she'd lost grip on. She sat there, arms crossed, her bun now a tangled mess hanging half down her neck, glaring at the seatback like it had personally betrayed her. After a few minutes of silence, she turned to the guy next to her, a balding dude in a polo who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, and hissed, This isn't over. I'll report this outrage. Delta will hear from my lawyer. They can't treat a loyal customer like this. Her voice cracked, still sharp but tinged with desperation, as she adjusted her tote on her lap. Clutching it like a shield, she muttered louder, I was protecting first class. Everyone up there should thank me. That guy doesn't belong, and they let him sit there like he's somebody. Her eyes darted around, searching for sympathy, but Polo Guy just nodded blankly, clearly wishing he'd packed noise-canceling headphones. She kept going, leaning closer to him. I've been flying Delta for decades. Decades. I know what first class is supposed to be, and it's not that fraud with his cheap cap and scratch glasses. I'll write to the CEO. I've got his email from a loyalty event. Her hands flailed, her pearls clinking faintly, her voice rising again as she ranted. They'll pay for this, humiliating me in front of everyone. I'm the victim here. They're all blind up there. Polo Guy shrank into his seat, muttering a weak, aha, while staring at the in-flight magazine like it was his escape plan. Mike, the buzz-cut crew guy, strolled by, catching her mid-tirade, and leaned in. You're on a watch list now. Next time, you're banned from Delta for good. Keep it up and we'll revisit that at LAX. His voice was low, firm like a warning shot across her bow. Karen sputtered, You can't do that. I'm a premium customer. I deserve respect. But Mike turned away, leaving her fuming, her face flushing red again as she hissed, This is an injustice. I'll sue them all. Up front, Marcus flipped his gray cap back on, the brim tilted slightly, and cracked open his scuffed Lenovo, his fingers moving slow but steady over the keys. He adjusted his glasses, scratched his short fade, and settled back into his seat, his broad frame slumping like he'd just finished a long shift. Sarah swung by with a water, her face apologetic. I'm so sorry, sir. This shouldn't have happened. He grinned, lopsided and real. No worries. I've dealt with worse. Just glad it's done. Gotta finish this proposal for tomorrow. His voice was soft, steady, like he was brushing off a minor inconvenience, not a public showdown. Mrs. Jenkins, the perm and earrings grandma in 5C, leaned over. How do you stay so calm, hon? He shrugged. No point getting worked up, life's too short. I run a little shipping outfit. Started with one van, barely kept it running, keeps me busy. That's all I need. His tone was light, almost shy, like he didn't want the fuss. She beamed. You're a gem, humbler than my grandson with his fancy car. Marcus chuckled. Nah, just trying to get by. Don't need the spotlight. Been at it 10 years. Small crew, small jobs, keeps the lights on. He rubbed his neck, glancing at his laptop. This pitch is for a new client. Hope it pans out, but we'll see. His voice stayed low, his hands resting loose on his knees, a quiet contrast to the storm that had just blown through. Another passenger, a guy in a suit in 6A, leaned over. You handled that like a pro. Respect. Marcus nodded. Appreciate it. Just wanted to keep the peace. He opened his water, took a sip, and went back to typing, his calm unshaken, like the whole mess was a blip on his radar. Tom's clip spread like wildfire via airdrop. Folks up front passed it around, heads craning to watch on tiny screens. He'd caught it all. Karen's smug grin melting into panic, her wild flailing as Mike dragged her back. Marcus just chilling like it was a lazy Sunday. Tom leaned over the seat, grinning. This is gold. Look at her face when they call her out. She's toast. Sarah muttered to Mike as she passed. She's still ranting back there. Keep saying she'll sue. Mike shrugged. Let her try. She's got nothing. Logged it with the captain. She's done. His voice was flat, his buzz cut catching the light as he moved down the aisle, keeping an eye on 15D. A few passengers chuckled, one whispering, She's her own worst enemy. Hilarious. Karen kept muttering, loud enough for the back rows to hear, This is a disgrace. I'll make them pay. That guy's a nobody. He doesn't belong up there. Her tote slipped to the floor, and she yanked it back, her pearls tangling as she adjusted her sweater, her face a mix of fury and defeat. Polo guy finally snapped, Lady, give it a rest. I'm trying to sleep, she glared. Don't you talk to me like that. I am the victim. But he turned away, leaving her stewing, alone. Marcus typed on, his cap tilted, his focus unbroken. A quiet island in the storm's aftermath. Baggage claims a zoo. Folks jostling, belts grinding, that stale airport smell of sweat and jet fuel. I spot Marcus by the carousel, swarmed by passengers thanking him. He nods, appreciate it. Just glad to be on the ground, his voice soft, dodging the hype like it's a dodgeball game. He's got his cap on, backpack slung over one shoulder, looking like he'd rather blend into the crowd than bask in it. Tom barrels over, phone out, videos at 1,000 views. Check Twitter. I pull it up. Flight Karen's trending, Karen in the sky. Memes everywhere. Her face on a coach seat. Captioned first class? Fraud? Or a pearl necklace labeled gatekeeper tears. I'm like, this went viral faster than a cat on a Roomba. Mrs. Jenkins shuffles up. You're a good egg, Marcus. Kept your head high, he grins. Thanks, ma'am. Just didn't want to make a fuss. A guy in a Dodgers cap claps his shoulder. Man, you're a legend. Handled that like a pro. Marcus waves it off. Nah, just wanted to get home. Got a pitch to finish. Tom's still hyped. This is blowing up. 20K now. You're famous, man. Marcus shrugs. Hope it dies down soon. Got work to do. Delta tweets an apology, hooks him up with a year of free first-class tickets. We regret Mr. Tate's experience, his loyalties valued. Some news site runs, black businessman harassed on flight, keeps it cool like a legend. I catch him on a terminal TV talking to a reporter. I just wanted to finish my work. Didn't expect this fuss. Cap on, backpack dangling, he's low-key as ever. Folks cheer. You're the man, Marcus. He gives a shy wave, ducking out of frame. Karen's name leaks, Karen Ellis, and Atlanta spills. She's the neighborhood terror, yelling at cashiers. HOA tyrant over mailbox colors. A week later, Delta bans her for life, disruptive behavior. Twitter unearths her losing a freelance gig. We don't align with that conduct. Her Facebook's a ghost town. Friends unfollow, posts dry up. Mia DMs me. She's a nobody. Total clown show. I scroll X. Someone posts her whining in a local group. Delta discriminated against me, replies Rose her. You discriminated against reality, Karen, with a gif of her face melting. I tell my fam. Dad grunts, same old crap, higher altitude. Mom's like, poor guy, hope he's okay. I nod, he's golden. Didn't even blink. That flight was a circus with a point. Karen strutted in as luxury's savior, only to flop as the real gatecrasher. Her pearls couldn't save her. Marcus didn't flex. The truth did it for him. I've felt those stares, hoodie on in a nice store. Bias lurks. But that clip, the crowd's roar, says it loud. Dumb doesn't win forever. Ask, look, flip the script. If you found this story powerful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. These conversations matter, and the more we talk about them, the more we can change.